So all of you that were in the choir, please stand up so we can really honor you and appreciate you. Look at that. And if you want to watch those two songs again, they're on our YouTube channel, Unity of Kona, and Interfaith Service. So we did so great. Larry coordinated everyone so beautifully. Thank you. Yes. So that was us, Interfaith. You know, we've been doing it for a long time. And we're just so blessed to have all of you willing to share your voice. It was so great. I think we did it quite well. Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, good morning. Aloha.
Aloha.
And welcome to Unity Church of Kona. We'll begin our service by saying our affirmation today for the month.
Here we go.
There. Okay.
Perfect.
And it should be on the board behind me.
Yep.
There we go. And together, it would be, being thankful is a powerful mindset. I count my blessings every day. I am grateful.
Today's word is comfort. I move through life in comfort and peace. Jesus assures his followers in the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." I gratefully accept that comfort for myself today. Whatever I may mourn, people, habits, beliefs, I am comforted knowing that my sense of grief is simply a reaction to change, and change is an essential part of my spiritual journey. Moving through change can be challenging and even painful, but comfort is always available if I stay centered on myself as the Christ expression I am. Jesus did not pity those who mourn, rather he declared that they are blessed. As I acknowledge and move through any sense of loss, I find courage for everyday living. Sing for joy, O heavens, and exult, O earth, for the Lord has comforted his people and will have compassion on his suffering ones. Isaiah 49, chapter 13. Let's all say together, I move through life in comfort and peace. Thank you.
And now I invite you to visualize our sanctuary as a beautiful heart. And let's see this heart moving in and around and through each one of us. And we see this heart expanding, growing, filled with the love, the caring, the compassion that we have for ourselves and each other. We see this heart moving in and around and through our whole sanctuary, back into the children and Kayla, just feeling so blessed by all the good in our lives today. Allowing your heart to be filled and full, we allow it to expand and grow. And we know that all the love that we have for ourselves and each other is ever growing, filled with nurturing, comfort, and care. If you know of anyone in need of prayer, see them in our heart. And if you know of any circumstance in your life or in our world in need of prayer, see them in our heart as we say the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And now I invite you to get comfortable where you are. Close your eyes if that feels right to you. And we begin our time of centering and prayer by just breathing. So taking a deep breath, that very breath of life that is God. And we hold it for just a moment. And as we exhale, we begin to relax. And breathing in again deeply. And holding it just briefly. And we exhale. We quiet our mind. We calm our emotions. And we set aside anything that keeps us from being here in this now moment. And breathe in again. And exhaling this time, we rest in the consciousness of our heart. Relaxing our breath. We know that this is our time of reconnecting consciously with the God of our being. Each breath that we take is that holy moment of connection. The moment where we know that all things work together for good for those who love God. And allow this thought to permeate your mind and your being. We know there is only one presence and one power active in our lives and in the universe, God the Good. Know this truth, that it expands beyond anything we know. That one power that holds us, loves us, and renews us every moment of every day. In these quiet moments, we connect. We ask God to be present with us so that we know and feel God's presence. Every cell of our being is alive. Every thought we have is connected to that God mind. Our emotions are calm and relaxed. We are present. And right here and right now, as we go into a time of quiet prayer, we hold those thoughts of knowing that God is always waiting for us, expecting with gratitude our presence with God in the silence. Breathing in once more, that deep and glorious breath. We know that it brings us to this moment, a moment in time, where we're nurtured and loved, filled with God's grace. And we say thank you, God, for reminding us and blessing us right here and right now. And so it is. Amen. All right, how was everyone today? Good. Did you have a wonderful Thanksgiving? Yes. Are you just so grateful? Did you find that our booklet really helped you become more grateful each day and move through things? Yes, absolutely. So today we're going to talk about surrender. So from gratitude to letting go and letting God. So sometimes, do you think that if you really and truly let go and let God, that your life would fall apart? Because we do have an underlying belief system that says, I got this. I'm going to do this. I know I can do this myself. Anybody relate to that? Yes, because we're raised that way. We're raised to learn, to do as we're told. Sometimes you can think outside of the box, but not very often. So who do we begin in our early upbringing to trust? The adults around us, our parents, our teachers. If you go to church, you trust the nuns, the priests, whoever else might be there. But we trust them implicitly, that they're teaching us these great things that will hold us throughout our lives. And then you begin to grow, become a teenager, a young adult, and what you learned doesn't ring true anymore. Does that happen for you? I think that's why we're all here. Because all the things that I know I was taught, they began to kind of fall away. And it was like they would dissolve into nothingness. And I remember my question to some of my nuns and the teachers, and I love them. They taught me wonderful things. But I remember always asking, if God made us, then who made God? And I could never wrap my head, hair too, but I couldn't wrap my head around that. And then I'd have to go sit in the corner because I asked a question that was not allowed. So guess what I learned how to do? Sit in the corner. Keep my mouth shut and never ask questions. Because if they did, I got in trouble. Does that make sense? You know, in our great minds as children, they're just questioning everything. And you want to know, why does this happen? Why does that happen? I just came from my grandchildren's house, 4-year-old granddaughter. Grandma, what is this? Why is that? Why is this happening? Now I can say sometimes I don't know. But it's so wonderful, their creative minds, and watching their minds become alive when they hold a truth. So when I was young, and some of you might have the same belief system, that God is this immense, monstrous being in the sky somewhere. And sometimes when the clouds part and the rays of light come through, it's God smiling on us. I was taught all these things. And so if I was going to ever surrender and let go, who would I be surrendering and letting go to? The guy who was keeping track of everything I did that was wrong. Now, is that a way to learn and to surrender? It didn't work for me. And so when I was 18 years old, I just was like, this religion is not for me anymore. And it was really hard to break away. But I could not surrender to a God that was going to punish me no matter what I did. And so learning and growing became something on my own. I had this thirst, which I'm sure you all have, and had at one point in your life. You wanted to know more. How many of you just knew there had to be a better way? Absolutely. There had to be more to this life than what I'd been taught. So fast forward a few years, and I came to Unity. And the first thing I heard was, there's only one presence and one power. No. I was taught about the devil. I was taught about evil. I was taught about all these things. So there's God, and then there's Lucifer. There's God, and there's a bad angel. all these things. So there was always a duality happening in my mind. And so I began to question everything. And in Unity, I never got in trouble for asking questions. It was a freedom. And when I came to Unity, and it's like 40 years ago now, I wanted to know why you were all happy. I say this all the time. How could people in church be so happy? They weren't suffering that I could see. The kids wanted to be in Sunday school. So that's what I did. Jumped in, started teaching, because I wanted to know, what does Unity teach about God? And they told me I could believe anything I wanted. That was incredible. Don't you feel that way about Unity? You can have whatever beliefs you have, and you are okay. That is fabulous. So here we are, learning how to let go and let God. And you have the freedom to have the God of your being as you understand God. There's nothing greater. But still, how do you grasp this thing, this part that we all use God? And I'm sure we have old ideas about what God is. But Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, wrote this about God. Though personal to each one of us, God is it. I-T, capital T. Neither male nor female, but principle. Principle, P-L-E. God is not a cold, senseless principle like that of mathematics, the P-A-L, but the principle of life, love, and intelligence. So when you stand on principle, you're standing on a firm foundation. I love centering prayer because it teaches that God is always waiting for us, ready for us to come and be. And then through Unity, I learned that God is me. I am God. Now, if you were raised in the religion I was, you could never say good, and you could never say, I am God. But what a freedom that began to be for me when I learned everything was in divine order. What the heck? This life is a little crazy at times. How could that be part of a divine order? So what did I learn to do? Surrender. To let go. And whatever that energy is, that is God, to trust it. So I began to let go and say, God, whoever you are, whatever you are, show me. I need to know that you exist. And I think it's by far the hardest lesson I've ever had to learn. And I'm still learning it, going through this adventure of having a dis-ease in my body. Do I trust God? Not always. Because sometimes when you have a disease, you begin to look at that disease more than you look at God. And there are those moments. And so when we get to that point of letting go and surrender, it will bring freedom. And I can only say that to you because that's what happens to me over and over again. And for over 40 years, I've been trusting whatever that energy is that is called God, that all things work together for good. Is it possible? Have you had those wonderful experiences where you surrender and you say, God, I don't know what to do. I absolutely don't know where to go and what to do and how to handle this. And so in those precious moments of surrender, we say, okay, thy will be done. And we're given free will. So that means I can go half crazy doing stuff too. But I've learned how to reel it in and to say, okay, teach me, show me, let me be all that you want me to be in this moment, here and now. And so I know that the feelings that I may have and that you may have, they may be beneficial and they may not be so beneficial, but they all come from that spirit within. And I know the resentments. How many of you ever have a resentment? We do. And what I was taught by a spiritual teacher in a 12-step program is that resentments are a re-feeling of an emotion. And when I focus on the thought of the resentment, it really means I didn't communicate with someone or something about what was going on with me. So therefore, old feelings come up and they build. And what happens with resentment when it grows inside of us? Anybody ever explode in anger? Because that's what resentment will do. Just like our volcano. Some of it's slow, and some of it is very explosive. And so those resentments need to be dealt with on a daily basis, because we're going to have feelings that we've had before that we didn't deal with. And it's all God. So when people come into our lives and they may not be your bestest friend, they may end up being someone you don't like at all, we get to check ourselves out. We get to find out what it is in me that person reminds me of me. And I'm like, there's the freedom. Because I'm going to surrender to those emotions. I'm going to release it and let it go to God. And so in the middle of all this crazy life that we have to trust something. And so we get to choose that something as God, the it in our life, the IT. And it's not the technical person, but it could be. Wouldn't you? Would you say, Jim? Not the clown either. But knowing that that IT person is not a person, it's a principle. It's a principle in our lives that says, I'm going to take care of you no matter what. Whatever it looks like, I'm here for you. And that's the faith that we have to have, which will be our lesson next week. And so, how many ways do we try to distract ourselves and get out of knowing what's best for us? Can you think of all the things you do every day that keep you? Computers, television, food shopping, Facebook. What else, Jim? And all of it. We go adventuring, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But all of these things distract us from our true nature. And so when we work through the adventure, we get to say, okay, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to do what it is that you want me to do right here. And that freedom comes from surrender. It comes from trusting. It comes from letting go and letting God. When we resist the flow of life, we get knocked over. Has that ever happened to you? Sometimes physically we fall down. I remember when I first was in Unity, it was like, okay, be aware of your thinking, beware of your thinking, beware of your thinking. I would literally have books fall off a shelf, hit me in the head when I had a negative thought. Or plates would fall off the shelf, and they'd be like there, and it's like, what were you thinking? So it's like learning to see those signs of knowing that this precious mind that we have is so fabulous because it's always connected to God mind. Sometimes the only way that we can make it in a situation is to go through it. How many of you have stood when there's big waves and try to fight the wave and get to the other side of the wave by standing there? What happens every time? You get knocked over. And sometimes you can get swept away. But how have we all learned to get to the other side of the wave? Diving into it. And you come up to the other side and it was like, well, that wasn't so bad. That's how it is when we surrender. If we dive into the issue, dive into the problem, we will get to the other side and we will be free. And isn't it freeing to be swimming in the ocean? Absolutely. And how do we get there? Remember last week, what was our lesson? Stopping, taking a breath, and blowing bubbles? That's what we do. We stop and we breathe. When you are afraid of anything, take a breath. Take more than one. I've learned through this adventure that I'm doing on my healing and my recovery is that every night I do this meditation, and it's breathing in to the count of 4, holding for the count of 4, and exhaling to the count of 4. And whenever I do that, which is every day, I begin to be more centered, more aware of the consciousness of God in my being. And it's that simple. Breathing. So do this with me now. Take a deep breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it easy at first? No. Or you think you can't hold your breath for 4 counts? But I kind of make it musical in my head because that's what works for me. And so that's what I invite you to do. When you're feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you just can't go on, take a moment, connect with the God of your being, and just breathe. Some things that I want to remind us about surrender are: letting go does not mean that we give up. It means that we're just letting go because we don't know what the blessing is that God has for us. Surrender can be a positive act. So when you think about surrendering, know that you're going to gain everything and you have the potential of moving forward in a beautiful way. And until we surrender, we are part of the problem. After we surrender, we are part of the solution. And once we turn things over to God, however you understand God, you know that the outcome will be what is best for you. That's the thought that we hold. That whatever God has in store for us will be great if we'll let it happen. But we kind of block it because we think we know what's best. How many of us think we know what's best? Anyone in this room? Oh, my husband raised his hand. We know how that works. Right, Eddie? I always think I know what's best for him. But I got to let that go too. That's what I hear. The still small voice says, let go and trust me. Let go and let God. Because you don't know what's best for anyone else. We only know the connection of spirit within ourselves. And so that's what I invite you to do this week. You know, this Christmas is moving along, isn't it? So we have the opportunity of expressing ourselves in truth, in spirit, every day. We have a lot to be thankful for, which we expressed. And now we're moving for that experience of the Christ presence within every one of us. And that's what we do during the holiday season. So I invite you to connect with the God of your being each day, at least once during this week, to see how God will manifest in your life when you surrender. Thank you, everyone.